Hello, I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to day one of daily drawing. Alright, so today we got picked to do a llama, or alpaca? Alpaca? I think those are the fluffy ones, yeah. Alright, so in order to get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to draw it kind of cartoony-ish first, and then for those of you that are wanting to make it more realism, I'll show you how to add it to make it look a little bit more realistic. Alright, if you hear barking or anything in the background, it's just my dog. Sorry about that. Start, Teddy. No, sorry. Alright, so to get started, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a rectangular shape for the body. And then we're going to draw, notice that the neck comes out of the bottom and the top of the body. The head's kind of round. It's got pretty straightish legs as far as like the way that we're going to have to draw it. The back legs have the thighs with the kind of ankle bumps, and then it's got a fluffy tail. So to get started, the first thing I'm going to draw is I'm going to draw the body. The body kind of makes a soft rectangle. Whenever I say soft, I just mean that it's not perfect. It's a little bit more rounded. Oop, that paper is ripped. Hang on. All right, there we go. All right, so I would draw kind of like a rectangle. Make sure it's not perfect. Also consider the size of it. You don't want to make it too big. If it's too big, you won't be able to fit the rest of the animal on the picture. So make sure that you're saving enough space for the head and neck and for the legs, so don't draw it super big. All right, you don't have to draw as scribbly as I'm doing. I'm just a very scribbly drawer, so just as long as you have kind of a rectangular shape that's not perfectly straight and like pointy and all that. All right, from here, I'm going to go ahead and draw the neck. So the neck is going to start at the bottom of this rectangle, and then it's going to curve up like this. It's basically making a parenthesis of sorts that's just going kind of upwards. All right, so once I get that big parenthesis shape, I'm going to scoot this back a little bit more so I have some more space for the head. Alright, so once I have a parenthesis shape, if you make any mistakes, just erase as you go. Then I'm going to see if I can draw the next part. It's on the top of the body, also kind of making this a little bit more of a parenthesis facing the other way. So I'm going to go kind of up from here. I'm going to curve it forward. And this is where I'm actually going to just go ahead and curve it into the head. So this now becomes my head for my llama thing. I'm just going to call it llama. Alright, so here I have the head is now a circle-y shape, and that's just an extension of the back of this neck. And then this is curving down to the bottom of the body. From here, I'm going to go ahead and draw the rest of the head before I move on to the legs and stuff. All right, so notice on the head that we have a indentation right here where the forehead turns into the muzzle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a muzzle on here. It's basically a diagonal line with a smiley face underneath it. So I'm going to start with finding out where I want the muzzle. So I'm going to about halfway down the head. So I'm going to do a small diagonal line. I'm going to do a smile, connecting it back to where the neck meets the head. This will be kind of like a simplified muzzle. You can change it up a little bit, like if you want to make it a little smaller, you can make it a little smaller by changing the angle of that curve. If you want it bigger, make it a little bigger. It's up to you. So here I have a cute little nose for my creature. All right, so from here I can go ahead and draw. I'd actually draw the ears before I drew the eyes and stuff because the ears help line it up. So I see that it's just a diagonal line, a slight frowny face line, followed by another diagonal line. Notice that the two opposite sides of the ears don't touch, they're separated. So to draw that, I'm going to draw a slight diagonal line, make it slightly frowny, and then turn it back into a wider shape. So make sure that this part right here is not touching so that it looks like it's actually part of the ear. All right, so for the eye, oh, hello. Newt, what are you doing? Okay, hold it. Sorry. Cat distractions. All right. Sorry, love. All right. Okay, so from here, you'd want to go from a corner of the ear to where the muzzle is. That area right there is going to be where you want to put the eye. So if you're doing it cartoony, you just keep it kind of round. And I'm just going to start with it round. I'll show you how to do that more realistic for those of you wanting here in a little bit. I would suggest adding like a little highlight in the eye just to give it a little bit more life. For the nose, it's just kind of like a little diagonal line like this. And then for the mouth, I'm just going to make it smile because I like smiling things because it makes me happy. You can do whatever expression you want to. You can have like a anger llama if you wanted. All right, so I don't see the other ear in this picture. If you wanted to draw it, you could just add like another frowny face here, but you don't have to because it's not there. All right, so this is super simplified. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on. So I have the back of my neck and the front of my neck. It's curving down to the body. So here is where I would want to add the legs and stuff. So in order to add the legs, I'm just going to look at the shape. So it doesn't start exactly below the neck area. It's a little bit further over. So I'm going to go below my neck and then go over a little bit. This is where I want to draw the legs. So I'm going to do a slight diagonal line. Now think about the length of the legs. If I go like this and then measure it, it's about the same size as the body, a little bit smaller. So I'd want to measure it on my picture like this to make sure I'm drawing it long enough. So I need to make it a little bit longer. That's good. All right. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the feet pretty simple. I'm just going to draw a little curve. I'm just going to draw a little curve for the bottom of her foot. And then I'm going to do a diagonal line-ish going back up. Actually, it's kind of a curve, isn't it? All right, we're going to do a slight curve going back up. So I'm just going to do like this. Very important though. Notice that this is very wide and this is very small. So make sure that this right here is smaller and the top part is wider. We don't want to make that too similar, otherwise it will kind of lose that illusion of a leg. And then we can see this shadow right here showing us the curve of the body in front of the leg. All right, so this is good for now. What we're going to do now is we're going to do the next leg. This one is slightly stepping forward, so it's going to make almost kind of like a greater than or less than sign. So we're going to start with a diagonal, and then we're going to switch it in the opposite direction. And then just kind of pay attention where you want to start. It looks like it comes out right about here. So slight diagonal, kind of a curve down into where you want the other foot, and then we're just going to diagonal line it back to the body, and that'll make it look kind of like he's stepping forward. All right, so that's it for that leg. I can come back and do more detail later, but since I'm starting off with cartoon, I'm going to leave it. All right, for the back leg, I would suggest breaking the back leg down into 2 groups. I would have it to where we have the thigh and the leg part. If you draw the thigh and the leg separate, it makes it a lot easier and it makes it feel more natural. Before we move on, though, I noticed that we need a little bump right here. I forgot the, especially animals that have hooved legs and stuff, they have really big muscles in the front of their torso, so we would want to add that. So all I did was just change that to a smile rather than a corner. All right, so anyway, back to the thighs. So what I'd do is I'd start with kind of a big ovally shape for the thigh. Make sure it's not too close to the front leg because we got to leave a space for their fluffy bellies. All right, so once I get the thigh shape, then what I would do is I would first start off with the back leg, the ankle bump. So notice that we have the thigh here, and then it's going to do a smiley face sort of thing, or like a parenthesis sort of thing right here, and then we're going to switch it to a diagonal line. So what I would do is I'd go to the bottom-ish of the circle-y thing we draw here, not the very center bottom because that's too close in, kind of on the edge, and then I would do a parenthesis like this. And then I'm going to switch that parenthesis into a slight diagonal line like this. Make sure it's kind of even with this foot. After I do a parenthesis and slight diagonal, then I would just cap it off with the foot, which is just a smile for now. And then just do kind of like a big curve going back up and meeting the center part of that. So big curve going back up to meet the edge of that thigh right there. And there's our back leg. Before you do the second back leg, I would go ahead and do the tail. All it is just basically a big poof. So it's kind of like I'm drawing a really big curvy letter C. So I'm going to start kind of at the top-ish of the thigh. I'm going to go down, big C, curving it back up. You can make it even bigger if you want because this is art. You can do whatever you want to. All right, or you can make it smaller. All right, so from here I can go ahead and do the thigh. So I have a curve going down for the thigh, and then I would just repeat the process for the back leg. It's kind of like you're just mimicking this same shape a second time in order to draw that other leg. Key thing, notice that this one is a little bit shorter than this one. That's because it's further away. Same thing right here. You don't want them perfectly even. You want it to be a little bit shorter so that it doesn't look like it's too close together. So leave a little bit of a gap between those feet. All right, so I can leave the belly the same. I've got my tail. I have a little bit too much of an indentation here. I want to keep it kind of flat-ish. Maybe add a little bit more of a bump going up. Kind of depends on how you want your llama aesthetic to look. All right, so from here, sorry, I jumped that. Go ahead and erase anything that you don't need. So I don't need any of these extra lines. So I don't need the inside thigh lines. I do want to keep this part though. We can see that in the picture where they have the body separate from the leg. So don't erase that part. But the rest of this I can go ahead and get rid of. Get rid of some of the circle. Leave the jawline though, because we can see the jawline in the photograph and we want to leave that, okay? All right, get rid of anything else that you don't want. So here I have a very cute, very simple llama picture. You can leave it cartoony like this. You can change it up. You can make the head bigger. You can make the body smaller. It's up to you. I would suggest adding some fluff textures. An easy way to add fluff is drawing kind of like curvy M's or like letter E's like this or W's. And key thing, don't make them all perfectly the same. If you make them all perfectly the same, it doesn't feel fluffy. It just feels like scales. So make sure that they're kind of some big, some small. Just kind of make it random. And you can do them pretty quickly like this if you want to save you some time. All right, so I see that some areas have more fluff, some have less fluff. You can leave some parts smooth, and that's fine. I would suggest adding some fluff, so I'm going to add some fluff on the top of the head. Make it kind of random and silly. And add some fluff down here. And if you want to, so that you don't see that line, you can kind of slightly erase it so you can barely see it. And then go back and then add some more fluff. I just totally yeeted my eraser across the room. Whoops. Oh, thank you, Teddy. He's going to eat it, not give it back to me. That's all right. Okay, so more fluffs, more fluffs. More fluffs. Ooh, the tail should be super fluffy. Teddy, don't really eat that, but no, I love you. Okay, so more fluffs like this. Okay, and by the way, you can do as many fluffs as you want. You can even make it have spiky fur if you wanted to. This is entirely your drawing, so you get to do whatever you want to. Alright, so if I was going for a cartoony aesthetic, I could leave it like that and that'd be totally fine. So if you're wanting to do something cartoony, there you go. You have succeeded. Congratulations. Okay, so from here, if you want to do it a little bit more realistically, I'm going to show you how to kind of change that up just a little bit. So for those of you wanting to go for realism, go ahead and continue watching, okay? Alright, so for the face part, the thing that I noticed the most is my muzzle is a little too short and cute. I would want to make it a little bit longer, and I also want to add a little bit more of a bumpy look to it to make it feel more natural. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of extend the muzzle out a little bit. So I'm going to leave the eye there. The eye's fine. I'm going to extend this out a little bit, still keeping that indention, but I'm going to make it look a little bit more bumpy. So I'm going to add like some little indentions where the muzzle is. So here we have a little indention going up right here. That's kind of like where the jaw meets the actual muzzle part. And then I can go ahead and draw my nose again. It's basically just the same. So the nose didn't really change much. I do have some more fur texture in this area if I wanted to add that kind of stuff. Really big difference between cartoony and realism is just the amount of detail. The more realistic you want it, the more detail you need to add to it. So, and also just the more like textures and stuff. So here's the thing I noticed for the eye is that we actually have a fluff poof on the top of the forehead. So I would add a little bit more of a fluff poof up here, and that's going to cover part of the eye. So I'd erase the top half of the eye, add some fluffy floofs, maybe kind of go back and bring back the eye a little bit so that we have a little bit more of an eye shape here. Alright, so more fluffy floofs. You can erase as you go. Yes, alright. There's a little bit, it looks like it's eating something. That's cute. I'm going to leave it. Alright, so adding just a little bit more texture. Now you don't have to add these, all I'm doing is I'm just going like this. It's kind of like I'm writing the letter C over and over to add that kind of fluffy floof texture. I usually only add fluffs in the parts that are either darker or the parts that you can actually kind of see the fluffs on. So like right in here, there's some fluffs at the knees. All right, and then I see some fluffs on the back of the ear too. So here the face, notice how much of a difference the face made with just a couple of extra details. And by the way, you can go even further than this. I'm just going to leave it here for now. All right, so for the body's pretty much there. I would add a little bit more fluff textures in some of these areas just to give a little bit more of a fluffy look. Remember, the more details you add, the more realistic. Don't go too crazy though, otherwise it'll look kind of like a big scribbly mess. All right, for the legs, one thing I would add to make these legs more realistic is the knobs for the knees. The knobs for the knees are just showing you where the knees are, so I would just add like kind of like a bump on the parts where you can see the knobs, and that just makes it a little bit more realistic. I see the knobs up here. I don't see the knobs on the back legs, so I'm not going to draw them. And then we have a little bit of fluff kind of emphasizing the knobs. And then for their feet, what feet do they have? We'll just do a little hoof. All I'm doing is I'm drawing like a little triangle down here because I can't see its feet, and I don't know what its feet looks like. So there, look, it has toes and stuff. All right, so then I see that they have a little bump on the back of their leg thing. I don't know. So just looking for those smaller details that you can add, and anything that you see in the picture that you don't currently have represented, go ahead and just add that, and that detail will help add some more stuff into it. Once again, all I'm doing is I'm just doing like smiley faces, frowny faces, C's, a little bit of a scribbly texture almost in order to help build up that fur texture. All right, so that's actually pretty satisfying from here. I'm going to change the face up a little bit though. I think I added a little too much fluff there. There we go. Cute. Okay, so from here, if you want to call it done, you can. I do like shading, so I'm actually going to take my pencil and I'm going to shade the parts of the picture that I think should be a little bit darker. So kind of like in the spots where the sun's not really touching or the parts where it's kind of being overlapped. It's a good place to add shading. All I'm doing is I'm just holding my pencil like this to make it easier to shade so that I don't apply too much pressure. If you apply too much pressure, sometimes your shading can get a little too dark or a little too light. It's a little bit hard to see what you're doing. And of course, if you don't want to shade it and you want to color it, go for it, and that would be super, super fun to do. Okay, so there's a slightly more realistic llama drawn on top of our cartoony llama. And by the way, you can probably draw it even better than this for some of you guys, so if you want to keep adding to it, go for it. All right, well, congratulations on finishing up your first drawing of the day. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks, bye.